S.E.E channel, and appreciate y'all being here. Got all the lights on as you know time change happened, and we're dark at 5:30. So been fighting with it, and what did you know? And I just got to my phone, and just taking care of some stuff here. Turn some stuff here. Turn some stuff here. All right. We're here in Love's Truck Stop as usual, Covington, Virginia. So, and if you could smash that like button, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, folks, I've been promoting our other channel, RK Auto Detailing. I've got the link down in the description. And if you could go there, we're trying to get over 50 subscribers. That way we can promote doing a live stream. I like to do it once a month, and if that goes pretty well, I may go just twice a month, be the most I do. And just doing, just going over things at home in the shop with the detailing, the products I use, all the stuff, and starting the business and that, probably spend about an hour just out there and just answering questions and just chatting along. So looking to get that going, and I gave a suggestion to my wife today to she's already got a somewhat of a channel. Obviously you got to create an account to chime in to comments and live chats and that jazz. So we're kind of putting something that is simple as eating good old-fashioned American pie, apple pie. But we'll see if she starts popping off some videos with that. I said 2-3 a week, probably 3 a week, and it'd be easy, short little videos, 3 to 5 minutes. And if that starts happening, we'll start promoting that channel too. So we're just trying to hustle and grind and get things going, and just trying to find other avenues to generate some income stream. And that's the whole premise of being out here doing this and all that. I mean, would I be as dedicated and driven if there wasn't a goal or incentive behind all this? And that is monetary. Is there some kind of payout, something that's going to help offset and give you a payback, a return on all the hard work you put into everything you do. So and it's like what's going on right now. Let's just break some of this down. I'm going to go into it. I'm going to ease into it. And what we're going to start with is California. They have pushed back on everything. They are so far left, the politics out there, in driving a narrative. And I've got notes. I've got, again, about 6, 7, 8 pages of, what do I got? 3. So I got 8 pages of notes here that I've been working on for the last hour. But they have pushed and pushed. The key thing is they're not looking out for the citizens, the American citizens, these politicians, especially in these sanctuary states, sanctuary cities. They're harboring and defending these immigrants. And a lot of them are not here documented. They're not here vetted. And I don't agree with it. I never agreed with the open border policy that has transpired over the last administration's term, 4 years. So that has put us in a dilemma, and it's by design and purpose by the elites. The elites being people of Klaus Schwab and all his constituents under the realm of the World Economic Forum. That is a sadistic, evil entity. It brings no purpose nor light to any working, or even if you're on social assistance. These people don't give two shits about any of us. They are looking out for only themselves, and they will steamroll and uh, I want to say mow us over. They have an agenda, and we're not part of it. So, with that, this has been by design, and socialism. The big thing with socialism is really, arise through California and a lot of its people, pushing for that. The state that is always from the 60s, free love and free spirited and jazz like that, but they just don't see that, well, if this person's got $1 million and I don't have any, well, this person should share his wealth. And that's kind of in general their mindset of, we should all share our, they should reap the benefits of our hard work and earnings. And that is far from the truth. They look at people like Elon, they look at people like Jeff Bezos that started with nothing out of either their basements or their parents' garage, which Bezos did with Amazon. And his parents took a second mortgage on, we got the turd show of the Loves at Night. So there's people out there that believe they should be giving all their wealth away to them because they shouldn't have to work or fight or, go into survival mode because they were never, how do I want to put that? These people were never, I don't want to say taught, but shown to have life skills to live and work and be within this society. Socialism is, like this guy over in New York right now. The voting goes in tomorrow, but he has definitely stepped out of his bounds. I've listened to a lot of podcasts today, and he is definitely this Zoan. He's definitely out of his bounds of what he's saying he can do, saying what kind of promising, and he is. I think this guy is just running around like he's on, like he's riding a unicorn and floating around on pixie dust. But there's a lot of things people broke down that there's things he can't do and he will not deliver on. And look for a mass exodus of New York City if he wins tomorrow. There is going to be a flood of people bugging out of there. It was said, and I haven't seen it yet, but nor did I take the time to Google it, but they said the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, Mr. Hot Wheels there, he said that if that goes down and these people leave New York, he's going to tariff them. He says, I'm going to put tariffs on the New York residents that moved to Texas. Whether that holds water or not, I don't know, but I thought that was kind of comical to say that, that he came out and said that, if he did say that. And that would be kind of cool if he could pull it off, if it could be done. And I hope other states of similar nature do such that. These people need to know, they need to use critical thinking to understand what they're voting to fix a dopamine high for today, but they're not looking at they're voting. They're not looking at these people that they're voting for, and what can this cascade and contagion into in say 5, 7, 10 years down the road, or 20 years down the road? What will this leave my offspring to be up against? And people aren't realizing they're only thinking for today. They're thinking for themselves. They're not looking at the children they brought into the world and what kind of country or world they're going to leave behind. And it's sick and disgusting. But these people have been ranting all this last week about SNAP and EBT, and if you turn it off, I'll do this, I'll do that, and yada yada yada. So, and it's going to be funny when we break this down on some of these constituents that are on SNAP and EBT and what they, the kind of position they're in. But you've allowed yourself, and a lot of them will come out and say, I've been on this, generational learned behavior from grandparents to parents to them to now their offspring of learning how to be on the system, get disability, get health care, get food stamps, get your rent paid, get your car paid for, and it's just learned behavior. Now that everyone's waking up under this administration, and I think this is long overdue, is that they turned off. They're like, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to fund this. And they turn it off, and these people are kicking and screaming. Understand, this is the same thing that Russia and China are doing. They control everything. The currency, the manufacturing, the governments control everything. You do as they say, or there has been people, heads of corporations there in China that they've gone in, the CCP, and gone in, collected them, and they disappeared. Communist Party doesn't play around. And people need to understand, and they have, during COVID, they have locked these people, like in the Apple factory, locked them in and told them, you need to work. You're not going home. You're staying here. You're going to work around the clock and meet quotas. We haven't seen that in America since the turn of the Industrial Revolution of the early 20th century, the early 1900s. Henry Ford had thugs out there at the River Rouge plant whipping and beating people up to basically just get them as a pack mule working hard on his production lines. And they're still doing that. China more, don't hear about it so much in Russia. But if you follow a few channels over in Russia, then you'll see that they basically, their jobs, their pay for their jobs are dictated by the government. You can go and become a nurse or a doctor, that'd be great. You can move up to a level than, say, a general worker who may get $1,000 a month, whereas a nurse or doctor may get $1,500, $1,800, $2,000 a month. They're on salary. These people have come right out and said over there in Russia, when we go into work, they do the bare minimum. They don't go over and above, and they don't bust ass. And they definitely don't get overtime. Therefore, this is what would come once you start climbing that rung from, what are we? A constitutional republic to a socialism to communism. You're getting a taste of what the government can do when you're dependent on them, and they feed you your money, your food stamps, and all that, and they say, nope, we're going to cut it out. They're also going to come at you with digital currency, and they're going to be able to track where you spend your money, and then over time, they're going to tell you you can buy only so much beef, so much eggs, so much of this, because they can limit the purchasing power of your currency through the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, whatever it may be. Stable coins, I believe, is what they're going to base it on, and they may use the XRP, Ripple, for the rails. They're building it. It's there, and when they make it happen, and you say, well, they can't do that. Well, Canada showed us that during the trucker convoy. They went in, took everyone's GoFundMe. They shut down and took away all these drivers and all these people donating to these to the cause, and took all their money, locked all their accounts out. Can't tell me if they can't do it now and they fine tune it better with the CBDC, they can track you. They're gonna go off more of a social score then. If you're a good person, bad person, and depending on what you say on social media to how you vote, they could tell you, you know what, you're allowed 100 gallons of gas a month. If you exceed that, well, sorry, then you got to take mass transportation. And that is the narrative that's going on with that CBDC is they're going to control everything. Again, if that's what you're trying to get on board and vote for to get free, and let me tell you, this whole when Obamacare came out and everyone's like, ooh, free healthcare. Let me tell you, I was in the heart of the healthcare realm then between the cath lab, stress testing, and cardiac rehab. Your insurance, the level or tier of insurance you get, if you get, it's just like buying car insurance. If you buy the bare minimum, you're going to get the bare minimum coverage. If you wreck that car, your car's not going to get replaced. You may get medical damages covered on individuals and probably personal property a little bit, but some of it, the most of it's going to come out of your pocket. And my wife attests to this. She was down in Ann Arbor, and this girl got put on, what is that? The National Health Care. What is that? The National Health Care Act. But she went on that Obamacare through the marketplace, and she said, "Well, I'm on this." Well, that place, that specialist that were seeing those girls, my wife never was on it. We tried to get her on it, and they said no because, because of my, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's my color and because I'm required to work like a pack mule because, well, that's just me and my race. But they just said, you make too much, you qualify for nothing. Everyone's always said, why don't you guys get grants or help and all this and that? And I said, look at me. Do I look like I crossed the border illegal? I said, do I look anything other than Caucasian? I don't qualify. I don't get none of that help. Zero whatsoever. That girl was in a wheelchair. I was pushing her while working 100 to 120 hours a week for 9 months and pushing her in a wheelchair to doctor's appointments in between working. And I was denied. She was denied everything, any help. So I just dug in and said, F the government, and I will make this work, and we have. She accumulated $40,000 of medical debt in 2 years, and we paid all that off. And hey, Tommy, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. Love your dude. You're spot on with your videos. I'll get to you in a minute, but let me finish this thought out. But she had $40,000 of debt from 2013 to 2018. We paid all that off. And since from 2018 to now, we have gone from like close to $300,000 of debt, and we're peaking under $100,000 now. So $200,000 of debt while still maintaining. We had 2 houses, multiple vehicles. So yes, we've had a good life. We've been very blessed, but it's just my nonstop to continue to get out there and say, I'm not gonna let politics, the economy, or anything suppress me down. I don't look at it and say, because there's a lot of surveys out there and people are like, how are you doing in this economy right now? Has the tariffs affected you? Has this downturn in the economy? Has the high interest rates, whatever it may be? I'm like, I don't feel it. We haven't felt it. But then we don't go out and spend money on entertainment. We don't go out to dinner because we are very self-sufficient to where we can just meal prep at home. And I'm very skilled to maintain and do everything on my house. I had contractors over a week ago, but that was do some roof repair before the snow rolled in for the wintertime. That's kind of out of my wheelhouse. I'm not going to go out and tool up for, what were the guys there, an hour and a half? Fixed everything I had to have fixed on the roof. There's times when you're just not going to go out and spend the monies on the tools to fix something quickly when it's just cheaper to get someone bonded and licensed and come in and do it right, which I did. So Hey, Tommy, hey, thanks for being here, man, and supporting us. Dude, you've been just nailing it and nailing it with those videos, man. And I appreciate you getting on that guy. So we're not going to dig into what Tommy does, but look over there at Trucking Unfiltered or Tommy Unfiltered. He's got 2 channels himself. But he's bringing some good stuff and calling out a lot of these one-sided these guys with YouTube channels that are just one-sided. They can't see past their hand, and we're going to talk a little bit of that, and we're going to dig into these notes here. But with the socialism, you're you know if you're complaining now that they're taking away your monetary and your EBT or your rent or your cars. And, a lot of these people have been shown, and even in the Detroit area, we've got people that we work with. They're in Detroit, and they're like, oh, hell yeah, these girls get their welfare, their food stamps in every month. They go down to the corner store. They got businesses where they can black market and sell that stuff off to. And these girls are getting massages. They're down at the hair salon, getting their nails and, nails done. They're driving nice vehicles. Hey, that's fine. You keep doing you, boo, and you keep at it. But when they finally shut when they shut it down and they start vetting and filtering this shit out, it's not a necessity. And but I don't worry about every month whether my wife and I worry about the EBT card getting recharged, our rent getting paid. We don't rent, we own our house, but the rent getting paid, the car insurance getting covered. Will I have a few dollars that they'll give me to go buy the kids clothes or the free health care? And I didn't finish that thought on the health care. The health care is that Obamacare only gave you the bare minimum. And yeah, you can go in and see the doctor and get a copay, this and that, but there is certain surgeries. So you would find that if you got a bum knee, say a bad knee or a bad hip, bad back, you know what they're going to do? They're going to say your insurance dictates the level of care you're going to get. And with that Obamacare, they may say, well, your insurance will cover you this far. That may be NSAID therapy, which is ibuprofen, and maybe some therapy, physical therapy. And then they may get you a medical device, maybe a back brace, maybe a knee brace or something like that. And say, there you go. Off you go, because that's all you get covered for. And I can tell you, and this came up today, Laura, and I know you're in there, Laura, but she can attest to this. When she couldn't walk and she was in a wheelchair, the insurance was pushing back and saying, well, we're not going to do this, or this for imaging. The biggest, hardest thing that is the most non-invasive is MRIs. And they fought tooth and nail to do an MRI on her pelvis and hips to know that she was bone on bone at 40 years old. That's why she couldn't walk. And, they were poo-pooing around on that. And I finally said, can we just pay for the damn thing instead of trying to get insurance coverage? And the doctor's like, well, yeah, we found, and we were in the Bay City, Saginaw area living at the time. You went down to Flint, you had an MRI, and it cost us out of pocket, Laura, was that $400 for a fucking MRI. And the insurance, when you had an MRI done, when it went through the insurance, it was like, what, $2,100, $2,500? Ridiculous for the same thing again. So yes, we have paid, and I will. I'm like, dude, I've looked at doctors and said, what's it going to cost? I'll pay for the damn thing. And they look at me and I said, quit giving me health insurance issues of that's why you're hitting a roadblock, because the health insurance dictates. Screw the health insurance. You tell me what I got to do, and we will navigate around that hurdle and we'll get it covered. I'll pay for it. I don't give two craps. And there's a lot of doctors, and when you go in aggressive and maybe you are got a female doctor up against the wall, like you're going to clock them, and you kind of lay into them like, yeah, this is going to get done, or I'm going to break your jaw. And yeah, I've threatened. I don't care, man. I have lost so much respect for Western medicine and its doctors. And my wife just had a surgery as of recent, and I took observation while in post-op. We had a white nurse that put her IV in and saw us going into the preoperative and in the surgery, and we had a white male nurse. That was a female nurse, and then a white male nurse on the way out. Everyone else was Middle Eastern or Indian. And let's just say I took a standoff with them. And when they gave me paperwork, I read it page to page, and they were pretty throttled that I could dictate and recite everything back to them in that discharge. And then they were getting an understanding. I said, yeah, I kind of worked 10 years in the cath lab, so I got an understanding of healthcare, plus with my 4-year degree in healthcare and going to school to be a doctor as a chiropractic physician. But I said, come on, let's quit screwing around, because what really pissed me off with these foreigners was I heard them outside the hallway. When they brought her back to the room and she was still coming out of her anesthetic, she came in at 11 a.m. They were standing out there. I said, let's try to get her out of here by 11:30. I looked up, in a half an hour, you want this woman to be wide awake out of anesthetic, be able to go to the bathroom, and be out of here in a half an hour. I kind of looked at her when they came in. I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. She will leave when she feels good and ready. This is surgery 18. I said, so you can just, and I was about ready to get up and say, I don't want to get, I get very, when it comes to healthcare, I get very racial slurs going on, and I got to watch it on here. But I'll tell you, I don't have respect for the foreigners here conducting healthcare, period. We'll stop there. So, yeah, so they got the idea. So she got out at noon. So she was on her feet, and I got her dressed. She was able to go to the bathroom, what have you. And that nurse, because the rest of them wouldn't come back in after that, it was that male nurse, and then off we went. So anyhow, yeah, that's my take on healthcare. Your health insurance will dictate the level of treatment you will get. If you think Obamacare, like you get the free healthcare like Canada gets, and go ask those Canadians how long they have to wait for a knee replacement or cancer, anything to do with cancer treatment, chemo, radiation. Most of the time, health insurance plays God in their eyes. They practice medicine without a license. They will dictate what you will and will not get. And yeah, so not a fan of health insurance, not a fan of the healthcare model here in America or North America, as a matter of fact. So, to the notes. I took notes. I wrote down statistics. Trying to bring you guys some decent information with these live streams. And Tommy, I'm sorry, man, I can't. If this thing's vertical, which I can see over here on my tablet, I got it in mute over here. But hey, I got my update. I got my router back here for my Wi-Fi, and I told my wife what you had said, and we're gonna run it, and we're gonna see if there's gonna be a ding for an upcharge of running that from different locations. If so, she's going to look at it. We may hedge that over into our business. And because this YouTube is under our parent company is Arcade Media, so I will probably just put that into our business expense. So that's what I'm going to shoot for, if it's reasonable. If it gets too stupid, then we'll have to find another avenue. I didn't know how to get the Wi-Fi router fired up because it flashed a QR code up on the screen, this and that. And I told her, I said, we're going to have to do this when I get home. I just was in a short timetable here. So the other day, if you guys know Adam Carolla, he's got a podcast, and he was talking about all the SNAP and EBT stuff. So let's go over this. He was saying that women who are on the EBT SNAP programs are 60 pounds heavier than those who are not. SNAP is a fueling health crisis, which is the obesity, because you're getting processed foods, lots of chemicals, which makes you lethargic, very hard to digest with all the chemicals. I went through all that when I was in, at Central Michigan University. We went through a lot of the nutritional stuff. But I should have went into somewhat of a nutritional minor. I went into psychology minor instead. So go figure. I can't be everything. But women who do not get benefits from the government weigh in an average. So if you're a person out here, whether you're working at Starbucks or you're executive female, your average weight is 146 pounds, which in comparison to those who are dependent on the government subsidies and SNAP, EBT, welfare, and all that, their average weight is 211 pounds. So in turn, the government is funding obesity, in turn, disease. So then there we are. So who's that benefiting? Probably a few things: healthcare and pharmaceuticals. So the shutdown. Democrats are framing the shutdown as just a fight for healthcare. No, this isn't Adam Carolla. That first part was. This is other stuff that I've gotten through other podcasts and other sources here and there all through the week. Even last weekend. Democrats are funding the shutdown as just a fight for healthcare and food stamps is the narrative they're trying to push. They're fighting for you. No, they're not. They're really using it to lock in trillions in permanent spending. The Democrats don't tell that part, as they use the other for fear mongering. So they're there for you to get your health care and food stamps. Lies. They're using that as fear mongering, but in turn they're locking in the trillions, and the Republicans holding the country, and they're saying the Republicans are holding the country hostage over SNAP. They want their base to believe that they're doing the best for them, which, again, like I said, is just crock of lies. Get that out of the way so I can be like last week. What they're leveraging for is to make pandemic-era Obamacare subsidies permanent. So, yeah, all that shit that we just got done talking about, they want to make that permanent. Is it for us? Also, they want to reverse welfare work requirements. So right now I've been hearing like 15 hours minimum a week to go out there and do community service to at least get some, give back a little bit for your free freaking ride there, you deadbeats. Which is a major concern with the Democrats. They also want to restore funding to the left-leaning organizations such as PBS and NPR, because, they were funded by the USAID. PBS's platform basically has become, more current in the last decade or less, has been their DEI agenda, LGBTQRST and all that other BS crap, like piss on your damn flag. And NPR has been nothing more than, Tommy, I know you've been talking about Dum Dum over there on that channel. He gets in that echo chamber of Blue Sky. Blue Sky is a fucking phone app, and that's where every liberal hangs out. It's like if they're not hanging out there, they're at Starbucks. So it's an echo chamber. That's all NPR is for the leftists, and it's a propaganda narratives and to rile up the troops for that left-leaning side. Both of these funded, government should never be funding these platforms. Stay out and stay neutral. They should not, but they do a lot of, they brought in the USAID so they could fund all this stuff and say, well, we're kind of hands off. The USAID is doing this. It's like, come on, guys. Any lettered agency out there is bad for the human beings of this North American continent. So the Democrats have turned their backs on the working class American citizens and are building a strategy around building illegal aliens. So anyhow, that's what's going on, and see more to come. But yeah, um, I know even when I've been at rock bottom 2 times in my life. The first time, and that's during when I'm home and got my laptop. We'll go over my BMX Supercross history because then on that laptop I can get access to the videos that are out here floating around in the interweb world, and I got pictures and all that shit. But I had in brief, I took a bad digger in 2003, which landed me in the hospital. I hit I didn't hit the pro section, but I hit a big jump and I overshot it going into the berm. And so I want to say I flat landed, but I landed on my side, snapped my kidney, bled internally, a 2-liter hematoma, which in hours collapsed my lung and all this jazz, put me in a 5-day coma. And trust me, I've got enough people out there to tell you, they came to visit me. I actually had my stepsister leave vacation, got on a plane, flew home, came to the hospital and said, "You fucking did that on a bicycle?" She goes, "Christ, don't ever put you in." And it was outlawed in the family that I am to not be around any motorized vehicles, considering that a motorcycle, because I grew up on a KX80 in the 70s, very big in the motor, motocross and all that back then. But yeah, so that landed me, and then less than a year later, I was going after into the national championship. So I'm just headstrong that way. So, um, so anyhow, another indicator of things, because my wife and I know Tommy, you're in here too, and wife and I had talked about, back in 2018, we wanted to move to, eventually we're going to be retiring and setting permanently in Arizona. The one way we're going to get out there was a travel trailer we custom ordered and bought in 2018. We were going to full-time live in that until either we got on our feet and all that, and then, transition into a house or such. I've been a big RV enthusiast. I really enjoy going to the RV shows. I've done some RV factory tours in Elkhart. And when I go, I'm not going to look at the Chevrolet of RVs. I go to look at the big boys. Anything that's $250,000 to $1 million. I'm going to I'm going to those factories. And they're built more like a residential house. So I have, some update in the industry, and how this economy, is really taking a shit. And Elkhart being like an hour and 45 minutes or less, hour and a half away from my house. New RV sales are down 4.67% year over year. In comparison to the same time last year, it was down 8% year over year. So the rate of decline has diminished through everything, has diminished. Though everything is down, towables, which we had, was a bumper pull in comparison to like a fifth wheel or motorized class B, C, A, the big boy Prevost and all that stuff. Towables are down less than motorized. Towables are down 4%. The motorized are down 10.5%, which doesn't make, it's like the numbers, I was seeing just that the numbers were really a little weird, because they were saying overall we're 4.67, and I'm like, all right, well, where's that 10.5% come in? And so nothing's moving, nothing's selling right now, in that aspect. So this way. So the biggest hits have been with the fifth wheels, Class A and Class Bs, used RVs, but the used RVs are up, but by only 1%. And I'm getting to somewhere with all the statistics and all that, so just bear with me. What is interesting that I found too was right now, currently, this last month, RV searches with Google, the search activity in Google, in such search is RVs near me or anything, the traffic is up 14%, which is kind of weird, because up north where we're at, everyone's got their RVs tucked away, covered up, winterized, put in storage, or what have you. So it's very unlikely. A lot of, it's kind of hard if you sell an RV during the winter, then you got to go dig it out of storage, which we had to do when we sold our first one. So we had to pull it out a month early, and it cost us. We had to pay like $100 for them to dig out of the storage barn because they had to move all the other RVs in front of it. So let's see. Currently, supply is outpacing the demand, so everyone's inventory is up. So what they're doing is they're pulling back. Now, I got a friend that I lived next to down at my second property. He worked at Grand Design as a QC, quality controller, and then he went over to Forest River. And he said that during this downturn, the last couple of years, they have scaled back and still, instead of working 5 8-hour days or 5 10-hour days, they've scaled back to 3 8-hour days, and they're just paying them like 32 hours a week. And but he has picked up other side hustles and stuff, but they have really scaled back, which has led them. So in some departments, because he was a little higher up with QC, he got into the R&D side where they were doing prototypes of RVs, and just kind of doing that to suffice in getting his 40 hours. So let's see, the industry as a whole will go into a cardiac arrest. A lot of them are saying that right now. So what is interesting is this subject right here, which got me looking into this deeper and giving you that information ahead of time. There is full-time RVing. Since the pandemic, more and more Americans have turned to full-time RV living with the introduction of the remote work. And full-time RV living, because a lot of folks were like escaping out of New York. They were getting out of California, like, well, if I can remote work. A lot of them were selling their house. So if they bought their house in the early 1990s, so say 30 years later, so 2021, so say 1991, they bought a rent style house for $300,000. Now they're selling it for $900,000, $950,000. 30 years later, they're making over $500,000, profit on it. So they're turning around, they're running over to Arizona, and they just, people like that, and in New York, were running away to get out of the high tax and the high cost to live in towns. And a lot of New Yorkers ran to Tennessee, because I have customers in Tennessee, and they were saying, yeah, we were getting a good influx of New Yorkers coming down. And the locals got on them and said, don't bring your effing New York policies down here, or your mindset. You left there because of the way you voted. So don't come down here thinking the same strategy. You flow along with what we do here, or you're going to have a hard time living here. And that was, from my customers that reside there, outside of Bristol and Knoxville. So full-time RV living is a permanent, here's the thing though, with that remote work, a lot of these folks were getting into the cheaper versions of RVs, which they were end up, flipping in a year or two, because they're finding it wasn't holding up. These full-time RV living is a permanent, a lot of them were jumping in as a permanent residence and taking the profits, because housing market was going up. So they were taking their profits, putting it into investments, whether it was crypto, stock market, bonds, like bond laddering, or real estate, anything where you can invest your money in that will then work on its own to expand and grow while you're doing something else. So a lot of this stuff is permanent. They were turning to those as permanent residents, and compared to traditional, living and housing. Full-time RV living has not been a choice, but a necessity now, more currently, since, the last 2 years, with the increase of more homelessness and all that jazz. A lot of people have just said, you know what, I got to have somewhere to live, and better living out of a car, and or better than just living in a tent on a sidewalk. So full-time RV living has not been a choice, but and these people, not only by choice or necessity, but borderline survival. So a lot of these people are going to be homeless. So they found that, and I've been saying it, these people that go out and spend on these custom built tiny homes to have them delivered on a piece of property, and I'm like, yeah, dude, but what happens if you're remote work? goes away or you need to relocate again. It is easier with a half-ton or three-quarter-ton truck. Grab your RV in less than an hour, slides in, jacks up, and you're down the road. But it's like these people got to have a damn semi bring these tiny homes in, and or a fork truck or something to set them on blocks or some shit if they're not on wheels. So, and most of them are not equipped to do the constant road travel as a lot of these RVs that are built for. So it's just something that I never understood in that tiny home mantra, when they were really promoting it on the channels there on TV. Due to the economic conditions of overpriced housing, that was the biggest thing. They were saying is because the housing prices shot up 21, 22, and then through 23. A lot of these people they took profit, and we have a family member, Laura and I do, that they took a huge profit off the sale of their house out in Colorado Springs, and they turned around and bought a Class C motorhome, and they're living out of that, and they banked the rest in all different avenues and aspects. So they only bought the RV, everything else went into investments, the remaining. So yeah, that's what we've been watching. The housing price is up. Now we're watching it about every 2 weeks now. We're watching it coming down, and we're actually going to be sitting down with a loan officer and doing a health check. We're not going to do a hard pull on our credit or anything, but just a health check on what we may need to tighten up or cross the T's and dot the I's on to make sure when we step in, we've got our folder ready to go to get a home mortgage. I need to get out of the house we're in. That thing there, if you went to school and you went out on a job site to learn building trades, my freaking house right now is the freaking pinnacle of what more can we go down and buy more tools and learn how to do more carpentry and building trades work from. The only thing I haven't really touched was electrical. I had electrician. I paid electrician on the side to do a couple things. I wasn't going to run the 220. Just didn't feel like getting knocked on my ass. But I've ran all the plumbing, all the natural gas pipes that had to be replaced. I've replaced the hot water heater. I have redone 4 bedrooms, a bathroom, redid all the plumbing, faucets, the commode, all the drains, everything. I've done all the crown molding, all the baseboards, the wheelchair ramp. We finished the garage ceiling, walls, R19 insulation. I've built 3 huge decks that have now taken up a third of the backyard. It's like, I have just gone and gone and gone. I said, I'm done. This house is not going to be it's not a house that we're going to be able to stay in for 10, 20 years. It is time to finish up what we got to get done with it and get it up on the market next year. We need to pivot and get into something newer, better, and more solid. And went to a level of current, the number of people full-time RV living metros. So here's the thing, that another statistic that I found. Laura, you'd probably like this. Because housing's been on the unaffordable aspect, even though houses went up 40-50%, because I've watched in the East Valley, and Tommy's from that area. He knows what I'm talking about, because we did look at houses where you had rented when you were out there. But from Apache, East Mesa, Apache, out to Santan Valley, we watched houses at 220, and at a median price, and now 430, 450, like a year and a half ago. And I'm like, yeah, no, that same fucking house, I don't see how in a 2-year span that house can double in price. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to sit and wait. I'm going to sit on the sideline and wait. But a lot of people that couldn't wait, so the number of people that are full-time living by choice or necessity has reached 500,000 people, which has more currently this year. 500,000 people are living out of RVs as full-time residents, and that has doubled since 2021. In these RVs, they got to understand, these folks have to understand that these RVs are for extended stays, longer living, but they were never intended for full permanent time living year round, um, unless you know the market. And that was my notes, and then we'll wrap up on things. But when we did factory tours, there are at least 3 factories that build RVs that you could live 365 days a year, but they're not going to be the Prevost ones. I would never get into one of those like Greyhound, or Prevost makes Greyhound buses and all that, but jeez, Pete, these guys are getting out of control in here. It's been a lot of close calls. I'm in my normal spot here. But these Prevosts, I've seen it, and Andrew Steele does a lot of these refurbishing and getting involved in these $1 million motorhomes. And then you got to tow a vehicle behind it and all this jazz. And I'm like, yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm not down for that. I would be more down for the HDT, heavy duty truck towing, which would be just converting. A lot of people are converting your Mack, your Volvos, your Freightliner, your Cascadias, your aerodynamic trucks, because of the shorter wheelbase you can get into campgrounds and that. But a lot of them are converting them, the back end of them, taking the fifth wheel off, because there's a certain way the fifth wheel has to be for a fifth wheel, compared to the fifth wheel I have on here for, I want to say more of a commercial, industrial, dry land, reefer, whatever. This fifth wheel would tear up, the fifth wheel plate on this truck currently would tear up a fifth wheel livable home, because not only has it got to rock back and forth, but it's got to pivot side to side, and it's got to have more dynamics, although 360, than just forward and backward pivoting. But they convert the back end so they can pull their fifth wheel. But we did do a Lux from the RV factory. We did do a Lux tour. Those are 3.5-inch sidewalls, residential kitchens, residential baths, but you're talking minimum baseline and up, $250,000 and up in price. You get into the big boy, which I would, and I said we would go that way, but with her health has not come around or gotten better. And I thought if it did, we could full-time RV for a few years and maybe travel around before we, settled into a traditional home. But her health is only, if anything, it's kind of dipped down. It hasn't gotten so bad, but it's dipped down to where she's getting, my spouse can't get around as much. And I said the traveling would be just too hard on her. But I would have gone, even like a spacecraft. I watch a couple that custom built their spacecraft. It's a 57-foot. It's a custom frame, custom built everything, but it's built like an RV, like my trailer behind me. But they built it from frame up, independent suspension in the back. It's got do they have, Laura? I'm trying to recall if they have the RV garage in the back. Another couple does Sweet Travels or something like that, but they pull there's some with Kenworth, some with the Volvos, some with a Mack, but they'll even extend the frame on the truck and put a smart car in between the RV and the back of the sleeper of the truck. But yeah, 57 foot, and I want to say, all said and done, they had to be somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million on that build, and it took them 14 months, 15 months to get that done, built. And that thing is just ridiculous. But the couple's called Switch It Up. And you can take a look. They did a whole blog, or a whole vlog, of start to finish on building that from Spacecraft. And Spacecraft's out of Missouri. But you can look up Spacecraft, man. But boy, you're going to spend some money. You can pull it off, but see, when these people, say, well, these campers aren't built to full-time RV, you can't go down to your local Jayco dealer and just say, well, I'm going to get a Jayco and live in it full-time. No, dude, you're going to have to go so far out the box that you're going to be like, oh shit, you're going to spend as much money on that RV to live full time, but be able to mobilize yourself state to state, town to town, whatever you need to do, if it warrants your work to be able to chase your work. You know, some contractors do that. They'll get contracting work up in the northern states, so Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and that. Then they'll, these guys that, when I've been at Lux, they have people that contractors. They'll have the RV garage in the back, but it's basically their tool shed, and then they'll go down south in the winter months. They'll go down south and work as a freelance contractor, building trades and all that. So yeah, there's ways of doing that kind of stuff, but freedom of doing what you want to do. But that's just kind of wrapping up in the markets. You know, socialism, I just don't understand why these people just are going feet first in the pool on that. And it just blows my mind. But if that's what you deem that you need to be dependent on, I am still gonna, I'm still gonna go on my path, and that is maintain and hedge towards my own economy, grow my own economy. And there is a way that you can bank on yourself, and that's what it's called, bank on yourself, infinite banking. But there's a way to use whole life insurance to cash flow it to where you can borrow against the cash value of the policy, tax free, and then of course you want to repay it, so you can always go back and borrow more. But it's all into how you set it up, max fund it, and make sure your rider and the paid up additions and all that are added, so they keep adding more and more as you keep paying more and more into it. So these are things I've looked at. There's other things I've looked into with self-directed IRAs to dollar cost averaging in the metals, and there's ways you've got to. And why I'm saying this is, remember we talked about central bank digital currency. They can track you with that. It's surveillance. They want surveillance. California's already got it. They got cameras everywhere, and now Walmart is even in certain towns and certain states. Walmart has got where when you walk through the store, they're watching your gait of how you walk. They're getting your facial recognition and all the biometrics, because then they're looking at what type of person you are and what you're going to buy, and that kind of gives them the database to stock what works in inventory and what doesn't. But the surveillance is already in place and moving little by little. And people, and I've had people say, we need to get manufacturing back. Manufacturing will probably come back. But understand this, AI is here. What do you think they're going to do? Everyone's like, Tommy, that knucklehead that's sitting there while Trump's killing manufacturing. Look at all the layoffs. Yeah, dude. The unions, and Tommy and I, I watched Tommy through this other guy too. He just loves his union, and I'm like, you have at it, Haas, because I got a little comeback for that. And AI is here. Distribution centers, because that one guy was saying, well, our current president and administration's killed this town over Home Depot's distribution center. I'm going to tell you right now, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Walmart kills small businesses when they come into these small rural areas and set up these big conglomerate, distribution centers. Understand one thing. These companies will shut down a Home Depot store in that town after they decimated the mom and pop lumber store. And then they realize, oh shit, we need to cut some fat. Their margins on their stocks to the shareholders, their dividends got to be met, and if that means they got to cut fat, they're going to close down stores, and they may leave an empty store. Walmart does it. I go by a lot of empty Walmart stores, that are just left hanging there because it didn't work out. And shareholders. That's what I wanted to get into. That triggered me on a discussion. With labor force, your most negative thing with Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, trucking industry. My wife and I had this discussion today. Surprised you didn't trigger me on that, Laura, but your human labor force is your negative asset. It is a deficit. It is a like a liability, but it's a negative thing on your books. Where can you cut corners to widen your profit margins and more than appease the shareholders, and then raise your stock prices to then get more people to buy more stocks? Is you're going to get rid of your labor force. What are distribution centers going to do? Dude, they're going to implement now AI into these automation, into the robots that are going to run around on the floor and get everything. They're not going to need human beings out there trafficking around on the floor of these distribution centers. They're going to have AI, because if you don't believe me, go to the loading docks, the shipping docks of China. They're 99% all automated. The gantry cranes picking up the containers off the container ships out of the ports, and they're setting them on an autonomous flatbed little cart that'll come up, because they don't need a cab and all that. These things are just a flat skateboard. It's like a skateboard. It's an autonomous skateboard. Comes up, they set the container on, it runs it out. Now, they'll probably use a human truck and trailer to probably run it long distance. More short stuff, they're going to autonomous that thing. That whole shipping docks in China is all AI. They have people there to oversee if something glitches, maintenance, or people like that. And that's what you're going to have in these distributions, is people looking, overseeing the maintenance technicians, IT technicians. So that's where it's going to go. They've already, take for example the stickers, that if you walk down an aisle in Walmart and you see a sticker for, say, a pair of shoes or a can of soup, and the employees would have to come at like night shift and change the stickers out if there's a price change. Now they just have the digital screens there, so someone up in the office just can type and send it out, and all the prices are changed without having to have someone running up and down the aisles changing all the paper tags for the prices. Dude, shit's happening out there at a quick, fast pace, just like we saw with the computers and cell phone out of the late 90s and the early 2000s. Every 6 months, whatever you owned in a cell phone or a computer was already outdated, because it was just like you couldn't keep up. You just couldn't keep up with the updated version of everything. And this is the way things are coming. And yes, you're going to bring, say, chip manufacturing. Do you think for 1 minute they're even going to pull the people that cross the border, the Mexican help, to come in and work in most of these plants? They're going to automate as much as they can. And it's going right with fast food. Fast food's going to be automated. How many of these fast food places can you walk into? There's a kiosk there. There's no one at the front. They want to cut over 50% of their staff that's on the floor at fast food, McDonald's, Burger King, and what have you. So people need to understand, and that's where a lot of these leftists don't get it. They just want to turn around and say, it's this president's fault why layoffs are this high. Right now, they're cutting staff. UPS just announced this last week 48,000 jobs cut. That's top down and middle management. So top and middle management has been cut out. And Target's done it. Walmart, who else were they saying? But right now they're doing a top down. A lot of these corporate businesses, as they're going into the fourth quarter this year, they're cutting more people out, because a lot of this, they have too many people in roles that are just redundant to the next person next to them in cubicles or in the office space. And they're just like, why are we having people kind of doing redundant things that overlap? We can just put AI on it, and you're going to see that. And we went through this over 100 years ago, 125 years ago, in 1900, when we went through the industrial revolution of what had happened. This dude's leaving. I didn't even know he was in his truck. He's got a day cab, big thing. I don't know if it's a crane. It's a crane on wheels. So they must be doing some kind of telecommunication or something. So anyhow, Industrial Revolution. Everyone prior to that was farming to make it in the world, of this country. And the Industrial Revolution, it was promoted to leave the farm, sell your farm, or leave the farm and come work in a factory. And that's what they did. And there was that shift and change where people then had to become ingrained to working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, blah, 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 blah. So now here we are. We're in the next turning, the fourth turning of, manufacturing and revolution into, how this country is going to put along, or every country is going to put along, because AI is here. AI is the big turning point. They're going to throw that AI into all the machinery, Skynet, Terminator. But they're going to put it in everything to automate everything and just let, get everything to work. And how long and the reliability of it is kind of a unknown, kind of on the fence thing. But it's not going to require calling in sick, needing benefits, a pay, inconsistency and all that. They're looking for consistency, and they're looking for to widen their margins and profitability. So yeah, it's here, man. And a lot of people are just I want to say there's just so many people out of touch with economics, and and on this channel I can't tell you guys enough. If you want to know, follow the money. Always follow the money, because with economics is one thing I learned through all my mentors. You study and understand economics, you study and understand money, financial, like Federal Reserve, how money's created, what bonds are, stuff like that. And when you make money from businesses, because you start businesses, you cash flow it and then, or invest it into like assets like real estate, but you take the cash flow or the money and you trade it into, you take that equity out of that or the cash flow, and you invest it into something else that will then expand. So if your apartment complex is giving you money, you take that money, you invest it into something that's giving you 9, 10, 12% return, and that money expands, and you rinse and repeat that over and over, and how you grow your wealth. I have seen so many liberals, because East Michigan's divided between West Michigan, where I live, is way more Republican. You get over to the east side, the I-75 corridor, and all that union, that automotive base, because it for 100 years was the UAW, United Auto Workers, for GM, Ford, and Chrysler. They voted Democrat. Those people, and I have family members that have retired out of Buick and all that, and their mantra is they measure your wealth according to what you make by the hour and what you drive and where you live. And I'm like, that's not wealth. That's not showing that you're rich. You're just leveraged up on banknotes. You don't know. And I said, if you want to be someone that's like Elon, Jeff Bezos, if you want to be Donald Trump and all that, these guys know how they rinse and repeat. You take the money that this company's making and invest it into another company, or invest it into something that's going to expand that money. So then that money's working for you, and then you keep moving it on and on and on. And next thing you know, you got multiple businesses. Right now, I'm bouncing off 5 businesses going right now, and it's a bitch with being in this truck. But until those things start giving me some stabilization to where I can get a foundational run of money every month, that I say, you know what, I can back out of this and go into that. And once I do go full time into that, I'm telling you, man, it's just going to be I'm going past the moon on it. But I've got the keys to the kingdom. I just have to have more time. And I told you guys that last week or the week before? I said time. Time is the one factor I don't have enough of, and I need more of, is time. So anyhow, folks, that's my spew of the night. We ran on quite a bit, an hour and 10 minutes here, so I appreciate y'all that have kind of stuck around and hung out and listened to me. But just, folks, just do your due diligence and do the critical thinking, do your research. The information's out there. If you're hearing one side, there's another side to the coin, another side of the story. Get both sides. Deduct reasoning of what you get from both sides of that information, and don't be a headline reader. Dig in and see what's under the hood. Open the hood and see what's under there and see what's going on. And the last tip I'll give you is a Bloomberg article. If you're reading anything from Bloomberg, the nugget to take home is always in that last paragraph of an article. That's where they always put the nugget. So they make you read the whole article. When you get down that last paragraph, that's where that gold nugget's at, where you're going to get that information. The rest of it's just blah blah blah. So just take that as a grain of salt, that I just give you some information that one of my mentors had said. And he always goes there when he brings up a Bloomberg article. He goes, let's just get down here. Here it is. And yep, every time. So just understand that. So when you understand economics, money, and investing, you'll be able to understand everything. You'll be able to follow the money very well, because wherever that money goes, it's like the carrot on the end of the stick. Wherever that carrot goes, that politics is following it. Politics is following it. Whatever way that goes, that's where your politics navigates. Money doesn't follow politics. Politics follows the money. And that's all you need to know, is once you know the money, you will know what they're going to do, and you can always front run and keep hedged in front of inflation, downturns, and all the bad stuff that everyone else is crying about out there in the economy. You're ahead of the game. You're sleeping good at night. You're well positioned. That's all you need to know. Stay safe, folks. Continue educating yourself. Knowledge is learned, not taught, and we will see you in the next video.